minute to get started so we can get more people on the call because we had quite a few people pre-registered. So give us about a minute or so. Thanks. Bob, give me a thumbs up if everything looks good on your end. Great, thank you. Bob's running the recording this morning. I've got a couple of announcements, and then we're going to kind of go down the list and let you introduce yourselves so that Shorty knows who's on the call and what you might be interested in. I want to thank our sponsor, Old National Bank, for sticking with us this year. We started off live at Lucaby's every Friday morning, and we've shifted to Zoom, and you all have stayed with us, and we appreciate that. We appreciate Old National Bank sticking with us as well. This is an effort in collaboration with our Velocities partnership, which seeks to accelerate innovation and entrepreneurship in Columbus and Bloomington and the surrounding area. I want to let you know that Velocities was a major sponsor of the Crossroads pitch competition that wrapped up this week. And there were a couple of our 49 Fridays alums very involved. Cy Minion, our entrepreneur in residence, was a judge. Lori Cobb, who's been a speaker on one of our morning calls, was a judge in the early rounds. Manish Goel, one of our entrepreneurs, pitched. And Jenny Mosier, who many of you will remember as the opera singer, who's created a platform for other artists to promote themselves, won the whole deal. So it doesn't matter what your background is, as long as you've got a good idea and you get good support. Okay. Really move it. Into that. All right. Just a reminder, we are recording, and I would love it. And Bob, I'm going to ask you to kind of call names and find out who's on the call and tell us who you are and what you do. So go ahead and do the roll call, Bob.
All right, well, I'll just introduce myself to those who may not know. I'm Bob Shafsall, I'm the membership director here at the Columbus Area Chamber of Commerce, and I'm just going to kind of go down my screen. So let's go to Tom Dowd.
Good morning, Bob. Good morning, Cindy. Good morning, Shorty. I'm a partner and owner here at Dunlap Construction Company in Columbus, and longtime friend of Shorty. Excited to hear more of his story today.
Fantastic. Thanks for joining us. How about Therese Copeland?
Usually people butcher my first name, so Therese Copeland with Ivy Tech in the foundation, and just excited to hear Shorty's story. He has been incredibly generous in the community, and so I'd like to get to know him a little better.
Thank you. Let's go to Don.
Don Harvey. Hi, Shorty, and hi, Cindy. Good to see you, Shorty, and I want to hear about Pete. That's Boilermaker Pete. And
John.
And I'm of course love what the chamber's doing, and thanks a lot. Look forward to hearing from you.
Thanks, Don. Brian, are you able to get on a microphone? I know you're in your car.
Hey, yeah, good morning, Bob. Brian Payne from the Columbus Airport. Obviously, I know Shorty. Hi, Shorty. Good to see you. I'm actually in the car with Liz Cleland. She's here, too. Actually, she's driving, though.
Hi.
Oh, well, hi, Liz.
Hi.
Are you headed to launch Fishers?
Say again?
Headed to launch Fishers?
Yes.
Yes.
That's one of the stops we're going to today, yeah.
Well, tell John I said hi.
I have no idea where we're going. Liz just kidnapped me, and now we're on our way to India to go somewhere and see some things. So
yeah, we're going to 16 Tech also in the lab. Yeah, it's going to be a good day.
Fantastic. Well, thanks for joining us. How about A. Kaiser?
Good morning. Good to see everyone. It's been a while since I've been on one of these calls, so I was interested in hearing what Shorty had to say this morning, and just good to see everybody.
Well, thanks for joining us. How about Rusty?
Microphone? Yeah.
Yeah, you'd think I have that figured out by now. Sorry about that. Good morning. My name is Rusty Downey. I've been absent for a few weeks because I've been working on getting my realtor's license, and we'll be joining Carpenter Realtors here pretty quickly. So excited about that, and looking forward to hearing what Shorty has to say today.
Congratulations, Rusty. That's awesome.
Great, thank you.
Brian?
Morning, everybody. Brian Rushton with LHP Engineering, doing technology consulting, and this is Sutton, who starts screaming if I put her down from my lap. So,
Well, we're glad to have both of you. Rita? Oh, you're muted.
Sorry about that. It's Rita Wilder with Augusta Storms and O'Leary. I've been trying to get on these calls for a while and finally made it today, so I'm happy to be here.
Well, we're glad to have you, Rita. How about John?
There we go. Hey, Bob. John Bushhouse at Kemper CPA Group, and I've been on a couple of these calls so far, and just looking forward to hearing Shorty's story. Thanks.
Thanks for joining us. Let's go to Harumi. Well, she disappeared.
Okay, here. Hi,
Oh,
good
you
morning.
are.
Harun is here. How are you? Yes, I work from home. I do a home-based business for the health wellness. I teach people how you can get to your body function at optimal level. Thank you.
Thank you, Harumi. Jesse Brand, how are you this morning?
Well, I'm fine, thank you. And it's great to be here on a Zoom call. I've been Zoomed to death this week with meetings from the Ivy Tech State Board of Trustees, but I couldn't miss hearing Shorty's story. Having known, read, and just had a meeting with John the other day, Shorty, which was working on a project with him. So looking forward to hearing what you have to say.
Fantastic. How about Bob Jackson?
Yes, I'm Bob Jackson. I'm accounting faculty at Ivy Tech. This is my first time. I heard about this from Donna Zay, my supervisor, and decided I would check things out.
Well, we're glad you joined us today, Bob. Veronica, how are you today?
I'm doing all right. I'm Veronica from Kemper CPA Group, and I join these things pretty regularly, but I'm excited about this one.
Fantastic. Let's go to Laura Martin.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning, Shorty. Shorty has been a blessing to me personally and professionally for a long time. I've worked with Grammar Industries as a Dale Carnegie consultant. Shorty's beautiful wife, Ro, was on my advocacy board with Engaged Columbus. And now I work at Clarity, which Ro and Shorty are huge blessings to us. So blessings upon you all, Shorty. It's great to see you.
Let's hear from Dakota next.
Good morning, I'm Dakota Lamera, Ivy Tech business student, but just likes to attend these meetings.
All right, thanks, Dakota. Glad to see you. How about Stephen Combs? How are you today?
Well, you know, I feel like we have half the campus here today, so that's an awesome thing to have. And I've been on a bunch of Zoom meetings with Jesse as well. So I'm Stephen Combs. I'm the chancellor for Ivy Tech Community College and been with this group since the very beginning. And always enjoy my Fridays when I get a chance to spend them with this group.
All right, and let's now go to Rick. How are you this morning?
Good morning. Yeah, Rick Gardner. I'm doing fine with Berkshire Hathaway Home Services, and here with my wife Vicki. And we're excited to hear about what Shorty has to say.
Well, we're glad to have you, Rick. Let's go to Kennedy.
Good morning. I'm a college student at IU, so I'm studying entrepreneurship, and I heard about this through one of my classes, so this is my first time.
Oh, well, welcome. Thanks for joining us today. Let's hear from Chuck.
Chuck time?
Yeah, Chuck time.
I'm here. Sorry. Finding the mute button took me a couple minutes there. Good morning, everybody.
I'm Chuck Comm. I'm the Executive Director at Foundation for Youth. This is my first one of these as well, and I really was just attracted by Shorty's story, so I'm excited to be here. Thanks, everyone.
Well, thanks for joining us today. How about Jane's iPhone? How are you today?
Is that Jane Farber or Jane Hagee?
We'll give her a second to see if we can. She may not have access to unmute. So let's check in with Brian, who's on an iPad.
This is your mic.
It's just me, Bob.
Oh,
Brian
it's
Payne.
you. You're on there too. Okay, it's switched colors and the picture's gone. How about Kylie Abrams?
Good morning, everyone. I'm the ecosystem manager for Velocities India.
Well, thanks for joining us, Kylie. And Abigail Anderson.
Hi, I'm Abby. I'm working at Augusta Storms O'Leary.
Good morning. And we have one calling in on a phone. Last digits are 0455. Okay. Well, I think I've got everybody. If I didn't, speak up now. Otherwise, I'll just turn it back over to Cindy and Shorty.
All great to see you. Thanks, Bob, for doing that. We are here with Grammar Industries founder and I guess former CEO. You're semi-retired, right?
There you go.
Charles Shorty Whittington. Shorty, everybody calls him Shorty. Whittington has worked in the transportation industry for more than 40 years, and he grew up just down the road in Grammar, and he naturally gravitated toward an agribusiness career. He saw a specialized need for transportation, which prompted him to start Grammar Industries in 1977. And for more than 40 years, he has grown Grammar from a small fertilizer and grain trucking company into an industry leader specializing in hazardous material transport. And although trucking is his passion, his other business ventures involve real estate, renewable fuels, and equipment sales. He's been very active in the American Trucking Association, and he served as chairman of that group in 2009. He has served on the executive board of the Indiana Motor Truck Association and as director and on the nominating committee of the board of National Truck Carriers. He's a member of Agriculture and Food Transporters Conference, and he's also involved in many state and state propane and fertilizer trade associations. In 2014, Shorty was awarded the Founders Award from the Indiana Motor Truck Association for his lifetime service and work in the transportation industry. He shared with me this morning he's first person from his family to graduate from college. He graduated from Purdue. He was named a Purdue Distinguished Agricultural Alumni in 2007. And in 2008, he received the Indiana AgriVision Award from the State Department of Agriculture. So he's had a storied career. In fact, the business was so successful, it was sold in 2012 to a private equity firm. And I suspect we'll get into that a little bit, Shorty. So we're changing up the format a little bit today. Shorty and I are sitting a safe six foot distance apart, and we're gonna kind of have a conversation. And if you have a question, put it in the chat and Bob will bring it to my attention, or just call it out, okay? Does that sound good? All right. So Shorty, will you just take us back to the early days of your company and talk us through the problem you were trying to solve?
Well, thank you very much, Cindy, and what an honor for me to be here and be among so many distinguished people out there. And Don, thank you for your comment about Purdue. That was a really neat part of my life also. But Cindy, if I'm off on my game just a little bit this morning, Ro and I were having a discussion about me doing this program today for the chamber, and we were having a good discussion, I thought, and finally in the end I said, you know, Sweetie, in your wildest dreams, would you ever thought that I would be on a program and get to be on a chat thing and all that kind of stuff? And I wasn't sure. I didn't think she heard me because she didn't say anything. And finally I said, what do you think? And she looked at me and she said, Shorty, you've never been in my wildest dreams. So I have to tell you that got my morning started off on the wrong way, but I'll try and recuperate here just a little bit. But it's been an honor, and I told Cindy I have a couple things that I live by. Number one, if you give, you get, and I think that's a really, really big deal. And the other thing is no guts and no glory. And I started out on a farm. I graduated from Columbus High School. Most of the people that were in the class with me went to work for the Cummins engine plant. They could make more in 1964 going to work at Cummins than they could going up with a college degree. So you can see how things have changed over the years. But so I've lived in this community all my life. It's been very rewarding. I've lived in the same house out by Grambler since 1972. But I tried as I started into come out of college and got involved in agriculture, I looked at what the needs were in certain things in that business world. And one of them was I got involved in hauling grain from the grain elevator that we were operating in Grambler to the river. And anybody in the trucking industry knows that if you can load a truck both ways, you make a lot more money than a one-way haul. So I was looking for something in the backhaul to come back when we were hauling grain to the river down Louisville or Cincinnati. And I got involved in hauling fertilizer. And at that point in time, the whole industry was changing a whole lot. They were going from, they were importing a lot of fertilizers. Some of the production places in the U.S. they were shutting down because of environmental things. But we got to see a shift from rail to barge. And the barge, a lot of people don't understand how important the river system is in the United States. And I've had that opportunity. We do a lot of boating now. We've run our boat about 20,000 miles on the waterways of the United States since 2012. But that's the cheapest mode of transportation. But living in Columbus, Indiana, we can't get a barge up here to unload to put product into the shelves or into the places. So you need to have that truck becomes a very, very important factor in that last mile. And you're hearing that a lot in this industry now as we talk about Amazon and we talk about deliveries and we talk about the last mile. And it's really important. If you go to Lowe's and buy a new refrigerator, who's going to deliver that from the Lowe's store to your housing community? So that last mile is a really big deal. And then I was blessed in the fact that there was environmental things going on in the coal-fired power plants in the United States was trying to clean their smokestacks up, and they were using a product called anhydrous ammonia. And we were one of the principal carriers of anhydrous ammonia throughout the eastern half of the U.S. And that was all a brand new market. It wasn't. We did not take that business from somebody else. It was new business for us to acquire. And as I moved on through my life, I found another thing that's extremely important to you as business people. And Jess, I think you would agree with this situation. It's about your trust and your credibility. If people trust you and you got credibility, you can go a long way. I was telling Cindy, I served on a negotiated rulemaking back from 97 to 2000 in Washington, D.C. Since all of the regulations in trucking since 1935, there's only been 5 successful rulemakings in DOT history. And we had 20 of us that were chosen to represent various parts of the industry, and we gathered in Washington, D.C. Basically 2 days a month for almost 3 years to solve a safety problem. And everybody in that room, most of them had a couple of attorneys sitting behind them, and we would talk about how we could fix our problem. And then some attorney or somebody in the back would say, oh, no, that's not going to work. And we would take about 3 or 4 steps back and where we had had progressed about how we were going to take care of our safety problem. But one of the things that I learned there was about that people had to trust you, and people had to believe and know that you had credibility about the situation that you were talking about. We would have people come in and they'd start talking about solving the problem, and they really didn't know. They didn't know what a check valve was. They didn't know what the exposure was when you got out in the countryside to do all those things. So any of you that are looking at a new business, make sure that you understand what you're telling your potential customers, what you're telling the banker when you go into the banker and say, okay, here's what my program really is. And I think that having that credibility certainly gave me the first step that it was to walk that path of a success. That's a really big deal as far as I'm concerned. But it's been an incredible journey for me. Don, my favorite story about I was Purdue Pete. I was Purdue's mascot back in. I graduated in '68. I did the Rose Bowl. I've been in every football stadium in the Big Ten. Down on the field, I watched Leroy Key drop the ball on the goal line to let IU go to the Rose Bowl, and when they went in 1968. But when I went to Purdue, I was a farm boy and extremely green. I didn't really know what the situation was. And I had some 4-H members that was member of a fraternity there at the campus. And they said, Shorty, why don't you come for dinner some night? And I did. And then in order to be in the fraternity, you had to be involved in certain things on campus. Well, I was coming home to farm every weekend. I didn't care about activities at a campus. That wasn't on my radar. So I asked the question one day. I said, I'll get in an activity, but I want the one that takes the least amount of time. So I did the pep rally for the old Bucket game one year. And that was to my knowledge, that's the largest pep rally that's ever happened on Purdue's campus. I got involved. I got people involved. I got people wanting to do things. And you learn pretty quick that you can't do everything. And you also learn pretty quick that nobody's going to do the job as good as you can do it. But yet you got to have all the people involved. But anyway, as then I decided, okay, being involved in campus policies and things is not a bad deal. So I was on the PEP committee, and the PEP committee's job was to choose Purdue Pete. That was the deal. And the night we decided who was going to choose Purdue Pete, we sat down at the PEP committee meeting, and we had a stack of applications there. And the guy that was running the PEP committee looked at me and said, Shorty, do you want to be in charge of the PEP committee your senior year, or do you want to be Purdue Pete? And I'm going, oh, that's a tough question, you know. So I chose Purdue Pete, and it was a great experience. The kids, what you get to see, and I'm very honored. My son was followed in my footsteps, unbeknownst to me. But we are the only father-son mascot in the Big Ten that's out there in today's world. But it was go Boilers and Boiler Up. But it's been a great experience. It opens up a conversation every once in a while all across the United States. But once again, it's getting involved and showing that you care, and that's a big deal with me. So that's kind of gets me to. And then right now, and we sold our company in 12 to Venture Capital Group. I was sharing some stories with Cindy about that. I think a lot of people try and make the business world too complicated. I go back to the old days of the KISS system. But I think that if you really, if you understand the basics of things, and then you plug the basics into what you're doing, it's a pretty, I think it's an easy thing to do. But I get the opportunity to discuss a lot of times with people that are starting their own business and what they need to do and what they should do about this and what they need to do about that. The other thing about the business world that a couple of things. Number one is a penny saved is a penny earned. That old saying is as good today as it was when it was coined a long, long time ago. And the other thing is that if you can't you cannot manage it if you don't measure it. And with the technology that's out there today, and we were having a little discussion about that earlier here this morning, the technology that's out there today to give a business owner the opportunity to see where his business is at is unbelievable. But you always want to remember, if you're not measuring it, you're not going to be able to manage it. And that's a really big deal in the business world, I think. Even with all of the computers and all the stuff and all the opportunities, you need to know exactly. And I go back and it's kind of like a roadmap. If we want to travel from here to Louisville, you press the map in your phone, and if you're not familiar, and if there's an accident on the interstate, you look at your map and you think, okay, I can go around. But we're always looking for roadmaps to go to different places. When we're doing the boating, we have a boat chart, and we know exactly what the water depth is and where the next turn in the river is and where the next marina is at. But and so that's works into the business. If you don't know where your inventory is, how do you know whether or not you need to increase your production tonight? Or do you need to change brands? Do you need to change kinds of things? And that's been one of the challenges that we've found. I tell my trucking guys when I was at the office all the time, a dispatcher, and I look at things a lot as a chain of success. And a chain is something that you a lot of people use it every day in pulling a vehicle out of the mud or hooking something down or something. But every link in that chain is important. If you got one bad link in that chain's not going to do its job. So you want to make sure that if you're looking at your chain of success, you have one link in your chain in your business that you need to fix a little bit. Do you concentrate on that particular link in the chain? And it's not a complicated thing. It's, you don't have to have a computer printout. You can look, is your person answering the phone doing the job that you want your company to be represented by? I'm old school, and I forget some days how old I really am, Don. I think it's something that but I don't look at myself as old, but I like to talk to a company where the person answers the phone. If it takes me 20 minutes to get through to somebody I'm wanting to talk to, that's a challenge right off the bat. And the other thing that I think everybody needs to remember in this thing about how we're getting along is that you only get one chance to make a first impression. That's a really big deal. How impressive are you in that first visit? Are you a jerk, or are you a nice guy, or do you act like you don't know what you're doing? And people want to do business with successful people. They want to do, and they will gauge their opinion of you right off the bat and how you're doing things. They might have done a whole lot of, and I never will forget, here a while back, we were driving up the road in the motorhome, and my wife, she's on her laptop all the time, and she Googled my name, and she looked at me and she said, "Do you know you have 20 pages in the computer under your name?" And I'm going, "Oh, I wonder what they say." And but this social media thing today, and some of these young people, it's a tough situation. And if we can pass on some of the good things and it doesn't have to be complicated. It's simple. If you're not going to say it to somebody's face, don't say it on some social media. It will come back and bite you. But
Shorty, I want you to give folks a sense of how big the company is, how many trucks you have, and what other industries you're a part of.
When I started in the trucking business, when I came home from Purdue in 1968, I bought my first semi in 1969, one semi. I bought my first anhydrous ammonia trailer in 1977. I bought my first new ammonia trailer in 1982, and it came off of a lot. And today, when we sold out in 2012, we were about 60 million in revenue, and we had a couple hundred tractors. Today, Grammar is about 110 million in revenue, and we're running about 500 tractors and about 800 trailers. We're very strong in the eastern half of the United States. The company covers, and our specialty is hazardous materials, primarily 331 transport trailers, which is anhydrous ammonia, propane, nitric acid. We haul a lot of butane. I decided in 1977 that I had so many hours in a day to make money with a truck. So at that point in time, I looked around and I wanted to know if I had so many hours in the day, I wanted to haul a commodity that made more money than anything else every hour that we were running that truck. And then I got to thinking about, okay, if I'm going to have brain surgery, I want to go to the best doctor that's advertised or people recommend for being that best surgeon and doing the right kind of job. So I had a couple of consultants that were old friends that I leaned on a whole lot, and I decided that I wanted to be the best in the ammonia industry that there ever was out there. And I think today our company is probably the noted one. We get calls every week from different regulatory people or different companies. Okay, what would you do with this problem? And so we have become, and we share a lot. And I think that that's really important as a business owner. You need to share. And I mean, I know people have their little tricks in the bag, and I'm not going to steal it away from them. But if you're in your own little silo and you don't want to share, that silo is going to get pretty small and
Doesn't foster trust, does it?
doesn't not at all. No.
So I want to ask you a little bit about safety, because I know you're hauling materials that have some risk involved, and I know you have a very proud record of safety. So do you want to address that a little bit?
Certainly. The products we haul are extremely dangerous, but I had the opportunity to know a guy by the name of J.B. Hunt, the J.B. Hunt Trucking Company, and J.B. had a saying, you know, there's people that can fly little bitty airplanes, and there's people that can fly great big airplanes, and I got that. I never will forget that. And in the trucking world, you got some truck drivers that they can drive a little truck, and some guys can drive great big trucks. And I go back to the doctor story a lot in conversations with people. And one of the other parts of this is that, you know, I'll go in and I'll be calling on a potential customer, and customers are really tough. When you're offering a service to your customers, everybody wants the best you got, but they want to pay a lot less than what you want to sell it for. So I would sit down with a guy and I said, you know, in order for us to bring the safety and the kind of equipment in here to do your job, tell me, would you like to have a driver in that truck that works at McDonald's or Burger King or something that they're just starting out? Or do you want a waiter from a 5-star restaurant that's been waiting tables for 35 or 40 years and got the polish? Well, I want that good guy. They're ready to tell you they want the good guy. Okay, that good guy is going to cost you more money. So I would build the case that we're going to, you know, I love the idea. I went to a seminar one time, I think it was 1980, and I heard the railroads give a presentation about their operations and stuff. And at that time, 50% of the profit coming to the railroads come from accessorial charges. Now, accessorial charges to me is like when I go to a restaurant and you order a steak off the menu, but you got to pay for the baked potato and you got to pay for the salad. And it's not what that one price is, it's what the bill is at the end. So I tried to kind of put our business together that if you want a certain, if you want a load delivered at 8 a.m. in Chicago, I've got to plan an extra couple hours in my truck trip to make sure that our driver gets through this, be there and safe and all that. versus if they give me a window of 8 o'clock to noon time. And I think as you look at some of your business models that there's some opportunities to present other things there, and you can bundle what that customer really needs. But safety in our industry is paramount. It's really big. And a little story about how forced safety has come in the industry. In 1988, we had a rollover over by Cincinnati, and one of the major companies we were working for, I used one of their plant people to help me in that problem. And I got called on the carpet by one of the presidents of that company, or the president of that company, that, you know, that was my safety problem. It was not their safety problem. And like 5 years later, that same company had 3 vice presidents in charge of safety things. That's how fast we have moved. And in today's world, I mean, we talk about safety every time we turn around, especially in the environment with the virus and things like that. How important, and one person can make a huge difference. I mean, it's a big deal.
Yeah, safety is big. Let me ask you about innovation, because I know you were an early adopter of some new technologies. Will you talk about that, why you made those jumps early?
I'm at the wrong age for a computer. I made the statement back in, I think, about 1995 that I would never, ever own a computer. One of the little stories I like to tell, and in 1985, I hired a guy that was my banker. The bank had sold and he wanted to do something else. So he and I decided we ought to get involved in a computer deal and bring, that was in 1985. That's when the computers were starting to come into businesses. And we hired a guy that had just retired from IU, that was in computer science. And he came to my office and we put everything down in a book, and then he transferred it all over to the computer. And it was great. We were leading the pack. We were putting our business on a computer, and that was going to be a thing where I could push a button and find out where I'm at and all that kind of stuff. Well, that worked pretty good for about 5 years, but that guy and my bank guy, they didn't like each other very well, and the bank guy would try to change the computer, and the other guy would lock him out. And I was getting along pretty good, so I called the guy up one day, the computer guy, and he didn't answer the phone, and tragically he died. And I had no records of what was going on in the computer world. So I was challenged to all of a sudden change our operation, and I thought I could see, and I think that UPS and FedEx and the transportation world has done a good job of being able to tell you where your package is at and how they track their trucks. And I'm thinking, if that works for those guys, it should work for a grain truck also. So I was telling Cindy, I really, really believe in associations. I think the chamber is a great opportunity for every one of you on this phone call. But I'm sure some of you are involved in other associations, lumber associations, ag associations, and stuff like that. And I joke a lot that when I come home from Purdue and got in the grain elevator business, I didn't know what to do with a grain elevator. But the grain business had a grain and feed dealers association. So I went to that meeting, and I started asking the people at that meeting, how do you do this, or how do you take care of this problem? And I got so mad at the first meeting I went to, because the old guys would say, well, sure, you're a young guy, you'll figure it out. And I'm thinking, no, I don't want to figure it out. I want you to tell me what you were doing. And I learned that from my father. My father was he was a school bus driver, and he was in the school bus driving association. And then when he got to be a rural mail carrier, he got into the Rural Carriers Association. And you can go to these association meetings, and you can go to the stations, and you can go to the bar afterwards, and you can talk to people. Will talk to you, and I kid people all the time. When I go to an association meeting, I generally go to the bar afterwards, and I listen to all the stories, and I leave the bad stories in the bar, and I take the good ideas home and work them at grammar. And I think that there's, and people say, well, how do you have time to get into those things, and how do you pay your membership? Where's the value at? And I think that the really important thing is an association will only give you what you kind of give back to them. It's a two-way street. If you're going to just think that the chamber is going to give me all this, you're paying your dues the wrong way. But if you get involved and you find a little piece of something that you want to get involved with, and then you start the networking with the other members, and then you figure out, oh man, that might work. And once again, keep your stuff simple. You know, I'm not a doctor, but I can talk to a doctor at an association meeting and find out, oh, this is something that you probably need, that should be on your radar screen. And so in our computer technology, through an association meeting, after I had my deal where my programmer passed away, I was talking to a young guy that was selling for a major company that was doing a whole lot in technology and computer stuff for the trucking industry. And the one thing that impressed me about that company was they had a user conference. And the deal was that if you were their customer, you could go to their particular office once a year, and they had this big conference of where everybody got in a room and talked about their problems or what was coming out. And I believe when we started with that company, they were in number 4 or 5, and today they're on number 25 or 30, the different upgrades to where it's at. But I go back to my original statement about if you can't measure it, you can't manage it. And there's only so many hours in our day to do the kinds of things that we need to be doing. So the more information and another little, and I noticed there's a doctor on here. If you go, and I'm sure every one of you will probably go for a medical exam or anything like that, the first thing that happens is that they come in and talk to you a little bit, and they have their chart, and then they put their chart in the little pouch on the door outside, and then the doctor picks up the chart, and as he's walking in, he's checking you out. He didn't, you know, it's there. The charts are there. They didn't follow you around all week and decide what was going on. But that's the same way with these the technology that's available to everybody in the business world today.
I want to pick up a thread. You mentioned your dad.
Yes.
Something you learned from your dad. And I know you and your dad were really close, and you just lost him not too long ago.
That's correct.
And you've got your son working in the business. So I want you to talk about doing business with family, because we've got a couple folks here with experience working with other members of their family. And I just want to talk to you about kind of what are some of the pitfalls, and how do you keep peace in the family and in the business when you're working with them?
It's sometimes it's a challenge, but in most cases it's pretty rewarding. I started out working with my dad on the farm, and we were doing a lot of farm work together. And I consider my dad he and I were business partners together. We made investments together. The one thing that really started out my business career, I guess, when I came home from Purdue and we bought Kramer Elevator, and the ownership of that elevator was 48% me, 48% my dad, and 4% my mother. So you kind of get to know the family really quick, and whoever convinced my mother that we needed to buy a new truck or we needed to change something at the elevator. So it was kind of a negotiating thing. But I have a lot of respect for people that have their family involved in their businesses. My wife and I have been married 52 years. We didn't get along very good in the business world together. She had her own business. She ran the cemetery and did a great job. And we would talk about on the weekends we'd go to the houseboat, and it's a 4-hour drive, and we'd talk about, okay, what happened all through the week and kind of rejoin. But I think that it's really important, and I have talked to a lot of guys that their sons are involved in the farm business with them, and how the families are. and it's a challenge. It's a lot of times it's a work in progress, and it's a give and take. And do I agree with everything that my son did or does or will do? No, I really don't. But my dad never, he had the same problem with me. And I think that I learned early on from my dad that there's a give and take. And I think that if you're involved with a family member, that you need to feel the give and take. And I said early on, there's nobody as smart as I am in these business deals, but there's people that are almost as smart. And I think that's one of the things that I'm really proud of. I've said now that my son will be a better business guy than me, because the world is about experiences. If we have all kinds of different experiences and how they get to do things and how you make choices and what challenges you've been exposed to, that's a really big deal. And so I think, and I have a good time. I have 5 old fraternity brothers that we still get together. We go to the 500 race every year, and a couple of them have got their sons and daughters involved in business. And it's kind of interesting when we get together and they talk about, okay, how did we get along, or where are they going, and how it's going to go ahead and go down the pipe. But I think, but the one big thing I think is that there's got to be a time when you're family and you're not business. You got to leave the business outside the house. And when you're at home, you're family. When you're sitting around the table, it's not, I'm not picking John apart because he made this decision, and he's not picking me apart. And we're involving my wife in conversations, and we talk about family things. And I think that's one of the pitfalls that a lot of people involved in family, that they think they got to talk it 24/7, and give it a break.
Give it a break.
Give it a break.
Well, we're coming up on 9 o'clock. I want to make sure that folks on the call have a chance to ask Shorty a question, because I'm sure that something he has said has piqued your interest. So either put your question in the chat box or unmute yourself, and what would you like to hear about from this expert? I have one. Growing your business in the shadow of Cummins Engine Company. That's an interesting place to be. Being right here in the backyard of the largest diesel manufacturer with a specialty on highway vehicles, Has that had an impact on your business? How have you engaged with them?
It certainly has. I joke a lot about that. We only run Cummins engines because the fact that living in Columbus, Indiana, it's very politically correct to run a Cummins engine. But I've used it as an opportunity to know management people and talk with them and share our problems. That if we have a problem with a Cummins engine in a Granger truck, the chances that US Express or Prime or somebody else could have that same engine. And I found throughout our conversations, some people don't tell these people what the real problem is when they start bitching about a problem. And when they start digging into it, then it's a different story. So it's been a real blessing for us to be in this community and have the assets of that company help us. We've done a lot of testing with them. We've helped them and developed some new things that's out there, and we've given them another a trial ground, a proving ground, a test track, and if it works at Grammar, it's going to work for Prime or Swift or all the big boys that play. And it's also certainly helped me understand where we're at. And I don't know if everybody on the call knows, but these new trucks today, with all of the technology and it's there, the air going in the front of that truck in today's world is dirtier than the air coming out of the exhaust pipe.
Wow.
And I think that's a great testament for what they've done and how we want a better tomorrow for everybody that's going to continue to live here, and they've certainly done a great job of that, and it's been a great partnership.
Awesome.
But it also and Cindy, one thing, and I'll expand on it. One of the things that's a real challenge in the trucking industry is driver truck pay, and you need to be on top of your game. And when Walmart came and put the big Walmart distribution center in Seymour, Indiana, that changed the pricing that Graham paid a truck driver immediately, because Walmart needed a bunch of drivers to take care of their warehouse. So they took and looked at the good drivers, and they made a pay package. So we had our level had to increase. And I think that that's one of the things in business world that you need to look at where your competition's at.
Yep.
It's a big deal.
I know we have a question or two. Bob, you want to read? I saw Zach had a question. And
Yeah, I can take those. The first question we have is, how were you able to control your growth over the years? Increase revenue, but not, quote, get over your skis. The question's really about organic growth versus merger or acquisition.
That was a challenge, and where we were doing, and when I first started Grammar Industries back and started hauling ammonia in the early 80s and stuff, we did 70% of our yearly business in 70 days in the spring. So we were kind of, we knew what we really worked really hard. We put in very long hours. We were using a lot of seasonal help at that time. That was kind of the way that our business model was. The other thing is that I had a great relationship with the banking communities. I found it in 1985, I hired a guy that was the vice president of the bank, because he kind of answered all my banking questions. And we would sit down with bankers, and I would ask my guy when we had finished the lunch, and I said, do you think those guys are going to be a partner for us? And one of the things that I guess that I really want to say here is you need to have a lot of partners. And I consider a banker a great partner for Grammar. And I've never had a problem in signing everything I had for any kind of loans that I had. There's a lot of people won't sign personally. They won't sign it as a business. But I took the attitude in the beginning of my business life that if somebody was going to help me, I would make sure they had everything I had, that if I had a problem, they were going to get everything I had. You put the skin in the game. I don't know, many of you watch the Shark Tank. I like to watch the Shark Tank on TV. And when those guys start questioning the people that's got skin in the game, the most of the time those deals, somebody takes that deal, but there's no skin in the game. So, and the other thing was our big growth happened from 2008 to 2012. And that was a time when a lot of the rest of the business world was struggling. There was a lot of decline and things like that. And so once again, we were able to pick up, and I got some really good truck drivers. We were looking at, at that time, the hazardous material pay was about 25% above the regular trucking drivers' pay. And once again, if you got that good guy sitting in that seat, the guy that flies the big airplane is the guy that's going to make you money. And that was one of the way that I handled that.
That's great.
Looks like our last question's from Kennedy, and she asks, what entrepreneur skills were useful while starting your business?
That's our student. She just wants to know what skills are helpful when you're starting a business. What skills does an entrepreneur need when starting?
I think the biggest one that I would say is you got to have you want to have a personality. You want to let people feel like you're interested in what they're doing or what they're offering you. Because, and once again, I'll go back to the simple side. If people think that you're interested in what they're telling you, or you're interested in doing something that could benefit them, all of a sudden you have a relationship that's not there. We were very involved in when the landfill changed in Bartholomew County from where it's at to the one out there by Walesboro. And one of the sites in that potential deal was right across the street from my house. And my wife got extremely involved in that thing. And that committee, I had a conversation with that committee, and they were doing a lot of things behind closed doors. They weren't being open about what was there. And I related the story. If I'm going to do business with you and I walk up to you and slap you across the face and say, now listen, I'm going to do business with you and I'm going to tell you how we're going to do this and we're all going to be profitable, you're not going to get very far, because that person remembers the hit on the cheek, and they've already turned up. That you could give them everything in the world, and they don't want to do business with you because they don't like you. They don't think you are fair. So I think, once again, the first impression when you have anybody that you're dealing with, you may not be interested after you have that first conversation. That's okay. But have that first conversation and see what the opportunities are out there for the people to work with you.
Yeah.
And then sort it out.
Awesome. Wonderful. All right. I think we are almost at 9 o'clock. I want to say thank you to each of you for being on the call with us today. Great turnout. Stay tuned for new programs coming online throughout October, November, and December. And just to Shorty, thank you for going on this ride with us this morning and sharing your great wisdom and experience. It's been a great conversation, and we've recorded it, so we'll be able to share it with other folks too. All right. You all have a great Friday.
Thank you,
everybody.
Cindy. Thank you, Shorty.
Bye.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Hey, Shorty.
Thank you.
Can I have just a minute? Was one of the guys you would associate with in the association, the trucking association, a guy named Mac McCormick from over in Vincennes? Did you know Mac?
Yes.
The one.
Well,
Mac and I had a
well.
Mac and I had a wonderful relationship. Worked on some projects. I was so sorry